Buckle up, Buttercup. Let's go. Do we have some news to share with you today? How the heck are you? Beautiful out here at high elevation, southern Colorado, but last I checked, it was full. So just so you know, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. Lots of news, and let's get started. So the first article is from sciencealert.com. This is very, very interesting. Strange radio signals detected from deep under the Antarctic ice. Oh, I mean, what could it be? Anunnaki, ancient Atlantis, space aliens, lost Nazis, breakaway civilization, neutrinos. I don't know. We're going to talk about it, though. This is the original paper. Search for the anomalous events detected by Anita using the Pierre Huger Observatory. That's the science paper. And also in other news, James Webb telescope ups the odds that the city killer asteroid 2024 YR4 will hit the moon in 2032. The James Webb Space Telescope has taken another look at the potential city killer asteroid 2024 YR4 and found its chances of hitting the moon December 2032. It's increased to 4.3%. So you're saying it has a chance. Oh, yeah. And we're going to look at the details, the orbits, the updates in a minute there. This is the 2024 YR4 asteroid that was detected. And also, the sun is acting up. Powerful solar flare erupts from the sun, triggering radio blackouts across North America. The M-class flare was accompanied by a coronal mass ejection, currently forecast to land Earth with a glancing blow tomorrow, June 18th. And according to some space weather experts, they say there's about a 1 in 3 chance that another X-class flare could be launched today from the sun. Lots going on, so we're going to get into it. And I don't know if you've got your tickets yet, but there's some left. Get your tickets today for the ultimate petroglyph panel tour. We're also going to check out the Skeletor Castle. Now, remember, these petroglyph panels aren't even on the map. Either is the Skeletor Castle, ancient ruins that appear to be on a giant, massive skull boulder. It's just a boulder, but it looks like a skull. It's even got the eye sockets, or what appears to be eye sockets. And these ruins are built on the top of it and below it. We're going to check out this rock wall on top of a mesa. Several petroglyph panels talk about the significance, the lost history, and it's in a beautiful area, Canyon of the Ancients. You'll definitely want to join us for this event. Tickets are very affordable, so get your tickets today, and I'll see you at the end of the month. Also, do yourselves a favor. I know a lot of people complain about the EMFs surrounding them, whether it's 4G or 5G or routers or Wi-Fi signals. There's all sorts of electromagnetic frequencies constantly bombarding people. If you go to tinfoilcap.co, this is the original EMF blocking website from head to toe. You can get stuff that will block your phone. So there's Faraday cages for your phone. You can put your phone in. You will not get a signal. You will not be tracked. And those are really cool. You can also get liners for your hats, shirts, pants, socks, boxers. The liners you can put under your hats, around routers, a multitude of opportunities for these as well. They can be used for a multitude of things. So just go to tinfoilcap.co and get your EMF blocking gear. Also, check us out on Patreon for exclusive podcasts, exclusive interviews, hundreds of hours of exclusive content that we can only talk about on Patreon. You can see here we have over 1,500 members on our Patreon page because they know what's up. So check us out on Patreon. You'll thank me later. But let's get into this. Let's go to the first article here. Strange radio signals detected emanating from deep under the Antarctic ice. This is sciencealert.com. The white paper, or the science paper, is called Search for the Anomalous Events Detected by Anita using the Pierre Auger Observatory. So what's going on? Well, let's talk about it. Back in 2006, and then again in 2014, the Antarctic Impulse Transient Antenna, ANITA, balloon experiment recorded these pulses of radio waves. And these radio waves appeared to originate from below the Antarctic ice shelf at steep angles of a 30-degree below horizontal. Now, these events were reanalyzed most recently, and they also took a look at the 2018 data, and these were published in the Physical Review letters, like I just showed you. The signals mimic those expected from tau neutrinos, which create air showers. However, the origin angle implies passage through thousands of kilometers of Earth. Now, this feat is not allowed by the standard model of neutrino behavior, so that takes away the neutrino possibility. They have steep upward angles, and the polarity indicate they weren't reflections of cosmic rays off the ice. Even simulated bounces do not match these models. Very interesting. So, ruling out known sources, cross-checks with Pierre Auger, the Ice Cube, and other observatories found no corresponding detections, strongly suggesting that these pulses are not neutrinos nor conventional cosmic rays. You can read about it at psu.edu, newsweek.com. And extensive data processing and noise modeling also rules out instrumentation glitches, atmospheric interference, and other artifacts. Whoa. So what the heck is it? Very interesting, right? Well, some possible explanations could be potentially dark matter, new physics, and researchers are remaining cautious and saying that there's no definitive evidence that exists for an undetected particle, including dark matter. Now, the ice-related radio wave oddities, one hypothesis, a unique subsurface radio reflection of propagation effects near the horizon could cause upward bending signals, but current data does not support this. Now, Anita's final flight was in 2016. It's being succeeded by Payload for Ultra-High Energy Observations, which is PUEO, and it's expected to launch late this year or in December 2025 with improved sensitivity, aiming to detect more anomalies and possibly capture standard neutrinos too. Now, one thing that they're not mentioning is the possibility that it actually could be from something under the ice. What if these radio signals that are being captured from under the ice is actually from some type of ancient technology or an ancient civilization? Now, in Greenland, there was an army base built there, I think in the 40s or 50s. And within 70 years, it's now under like 1,000 feet of ice or something ridiculous. So in a very short amount of time, with extreme weather and conditions, you can definitely cover it up with ice and snow and extreme weather. So very interesting. You know, I'm not convinced it's an ancient Atlantean hideout or ancient Anunnaki technology, but it is fascinating to read about, and there will be more on the horizon, I'm sure. Yeah, that one guy that thinks he knows everything because he was in Antarctica for almost a year, he's actually burned a lot of bridges and talked a lot of nonsense about a lot of people, and he thinks that he knows everything, but the more information comes out, the more it's apparent he clearly does not. So he doesn't know what's out there. He just thinks he knows what's out there because he worked in that area, and he didn't work on that machine either. He worked around the machine. And so now he's got something in his head that it's a cover up or a conspiracy or ancient aliens or something like that. But he really has no idea. It's pure speculation and opinions on his part, which is fine. But I just want to make that very clear. He doesn't know what it is, and he doesn't really know what's going on out there. On that note, though, let's jump to the next article. This is very interesting. So you remember the 2024 YR4 asteroid? First initial reports come out, and it was a 3 on the Torino scale, I think it's referred to, because the astronomers did predict there was about a 3% chance, which is pretty substantial for an asteroid of this magnitude that far away, because that can change substantially when it gets closer to Earth based upon the gravitational influx of the Earth and the moon. But now they're saying it's most likely not going to hit the Earth. But with the data from the James Webb Space Telescope, they are predicting that there's about a 4.3% chance, which is actually increased. Before it was 3%, 3-something percent. So it's increased over 1% to over 4%. There's a potential this asteroid could hit the moon. Could you imagine if something of this magnitude actually slammed into the moon, like what kind of significance that would have? Very interesting. Hey, Aaron, good to see you, man. Hope all is well. Good to see everybody in the chat. I hope you're having a beautiful day. Thank you for being here with us. Let's take a look at some of this information. This near-Earth asteroid was discovered December 27th, 2024 by the Atlas survey in Chile. It has an estimated diameter of between 174 and 220 feet, which is pretty substantial. That's the height of a 10 to 15-story building. And initial reports, early observations suggested an Earth impact probability of 3.1%, reaching the Torino scale category of 3, triggering global tracking efforts. You can read about that at Live Science, Wikipedia. And then by late February, further observations reduced the Earth impact chance to effectively 0.001%. It was downgraded to a 0 on the Torino scale, but now they're saying there's a potential impact to hit the moon. May 2025, the James Webb Space Telescope near-infrared camera observations refined its orbit, increasing the chance of a lunar impact December 22nd, 2032 to 4.3%. Now that's up from 3.8%. Earlier estimates hovered around 2 to 3.8% before the latest data. Now, a lunar collision could release between 6 to 7 megatons of TNT, creating a crater between 500 meters to a kilometer in width. You can read about that in the New York Post. An impact like that could eject large debris, possibly millions of tons, posing a hazard for Earth, orbiting satellites day after the impact. So even though it's not projected to hit Earth, if it slams into the moon, you're going to see major debris, which absolutely could cause some problems with satellites. The JWST's final May 2025 observation improved orbital precision by 20%, but the asteroid is going to be out of view until December of 2028, which will be in close approach. And then we will look at the latest data available. So currently, no threat to hit Earth. Recent data firmly rules out an Earth impact in 2032. A 4.3 chance of hitting the moon as of May 11th, based on the James Webb Space Telescope data, and improved but still modest probability. Potential to observe a known asteroid forming a crater plus study ejecta and effects in lunar and CIS lunar space, which is labeled a unique nanu space opportunity, and further tracking essential. 2028 Earth flyby will be crucial for improving orbital projections. So let's take a look at this right now. Let's go to this right here. What you're looking at here is the 2024 YR4. This was carried out with the ESO, which is a very large telescope, and this was done in January. You see it right there. In comparison, when we look at the size of this asteroid, remember the Tunguska blast over Siberia in the early 1900s that leveled out miles and miles and miles of forest. It's about the size of a Boeing 747, and it's larger than the Chelyabinsk asteroid that blew up over Russia several years ago, as well as the 2009 Sulawesi asteroid. So it's pretty big, or meteor, whatever. Now, this is a orbit diagram of the YR4, as you can see right here, in between Earth and Mars at that point, according to the projections there. Here is an animation. Let's take a look at this real quick. Wow. Saying 2036 being highly uncertain. Well, if it doesn't hit the moon, it's definitely going to cause some opportunities, that's for sure. And even if it does. This is the 2032 close approach. Look at, boom. Looks like it gets pretty damn close to the moon right there, because that yellow dot is the moon, as you can see. Quite a ways away from Earth. It looks pretty damn close to the moon. Let's look at that one more time. Wow. This is the position uncertainty in 2032. It keeps getting, the percentages continue to move up. towards the moon, but not towards Earth. That's good. Here's the impact risk corridor. Close approach, December 22nd, 2032. What it looks like from the James Webb Space Telescope infrared, you can see right there. This was cataloged March 8th, 2025. It's an Apollo-type near-Earth object, orbits the sun on an elliptical orbit that crosses Earth's orbit. It's close. It's close approach back in December of 2024. The asteroid has an orbital period of about 3.99 years and an orbital inclination of 3.41 degrees with respect to Earth's orbit. We'll keep you posted. Now, in other news, this is space.com. Powerful solar flare erupts from the sun, triggering radio blackouts across North America. The M-class flare was accompanied by a coronal mass ejection, currently forecast to land Earth with a glancing blow June 18th. Let's take a look at this real quick. So, June 15th, yesterday, at approximately 2:25 p.m. Eastern Time, sunspot region AR4114 unleashed a powerful M8.46 class flare, just shy of being classified as an X-class flare. The flare triggered shortwave radio blackouts across North America as the burst of X-rays and extreme ultraviolet radiation ionized the sunlit ionosphere. These disturbances can hamper aviation, communication, maritime operations, and amateur radio usage temporarily. The flare was followed by a CME, whose flank is expected to graze Earth around June 18th, which is tomorrow, potentially inducing a G1 class geomagnetic storm and sparking northern lights as far south as northern Michigan and Maine. Solar flares are ranked from A, B, C, M, and X. Each letter represents a 10-fold increase in power. A subclass number, M8.46, pins down its relative strength. M-class flares tend to disrupt high-frequency radio. The NOAA Space Weather Scale rates storms R1 through R5 for radio blackouts and G1 through G5 for geomagnetic storms. The recent flare caused a radio blackout event, but is expected to result at most in a G1 minor geomagnetic storm. Similar past events include the major solar storm of March of 1989, which caused widespread power grid failure in Quebec, as well as in 1972, August storms triggered electrical disruptions and even detonated naval mines in Vietnam. Wow. Holy crap. Oh, man. So, key takeaways. Yesterday's solar flare was an intense 8.46 class burst from the AR4114, causing radio blackouts over North America. There's a CME alert expected to arrive tomorrow with the chance of minor geomagnetic activity and aurora displays. Tech impacts, temporary shortwave radio, aviation, and maritime high-frequency communication disruptions, and continued monitoring is warranted as sunspot AR4114 remains active. More flares may follow. Now, there is elevated ionospheric ionization that can disrupt GPS and navigation systems. Large geomagnetic storms can potentially strain power grids and communication networks, highlighting the importance of awareness and preparedness. And if the CME connects with Earth's magnetic field, auroras could become visible at lower latitudes such as Michigan and Maine. Hey, everybody. How the heck are you? So tomorrow, be prepared for potential CME arrival. The impact may be minor, a G1, but watch for space weather alerts. And sunspot AR4114 remains active. Further flares could affect HF communications and produce auroras. Staying informed via NOAA and SWPC updates helps industries and individuals adapt to space weather effects. Let's take a look at this real quick. AR4114. AR4114. Look at that beauty. That's pretty intense. So a lot of people that study solar weather, extreme weather, etc., they know about this kind of stuff right here. But I just want to give you a quick update if you didn't already know this. So solar energetic particles can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 days to hit Earth. X-ray emissions take about 8 minutes, and solar wind disturbances take between 2 and 3 days. And as you can see here with the graphic from Global Fujitsu, you've got space radiation, thermospheric disturbances, ionospheric disturbances, power outages, communication failures, satellite failure, exposure effects, auroral activity, all connected to the sun. So the sun is definitely acting up, and the magnetosphere is acting very odd, and the magnetic poles are acting very bizarre. I think a lot of that might have something to do with some of this extreme weather that we're seeing right now, potentially. Let's take a look at this next article. This is very interesting. This is from theindependent.com. And the reason this is very interesting because the USS Nimitz was actually in line to be decommissioned. They were going to decommission this aircraft carrier for its 50th anniversary or something. And now they're actually, the military is sending it overseas. Very interesting. There's a lot of speculation as to why this one in specific, like, I'll get to that in a minute. But the U.S. sends aircraft carrier from South China Sea to Middle East as conflict between Israel and Iran grows. The USS Nimitz and its carrier strike group are steaming west from the Pacific as part of an overall buildup of U.S. military firepower. Let's take a look at this real quick. The USS Nimitz carrier strike group departed the South China Sea this week, heading to join the USS Carl Vinson in the Arabian Sea, marking the second U.S. carrier deployed to the region amid escalating Iran-Israel tensions. The Nimitz strike group includes 9 air squadrons, is escorted by 5 destroyers, reflecting a substantial naval force buildup. The U.S. also has repositioned dozens of Air Force tankers, aircraft to Europe, and 2 destroyers have moved to the Mediterranean to protect U.S. interests. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stated the deployment aimed to protect U.S. forces and assets, enhancing defensive readiness amid volatile conditions, and the movement is largely defensive. There is no indication of imminent offensive action by U.S. forces. Israel has launched extensive airstrikes inside Iran, targeting military and nuclear-related assets, while Iran has retaliated with missiles and drone attacks. President Trump, who returned early from the G7 summit, urged Iran not to acquire nuclear weapons and hinted that Tehran should evacuate civilians preemptively. He emphasized aiming for a deal, but said both nations may have to fight it out first. So the carrier presence obviously shows serious U.S. deterrence posture, defensive yet backed by powerful assets. Congress and allies watch closely. Deployment sends diplomatic as well as tactical signals, and moving heavy military hardware increases pressure and the chance of accidental escalation. The U.S. aims to strengthen defenses without becoming a direct combatant. So the U.S. has escalated its military presence with 2 carrier strike groups, the USS Nimitz and the USS Carl Vinson, supported by destroyers and tanker aircraft. These moves are defensive in nature, aimed at protecting personnel and infrastructure amid rising Israeli-Iran exchanges, and there is no current plan for U.S. offensive involvement, though the buildup underscores a readiness to act if U.S. assets are targeted. Now, this is what's very interesting. So check this out. The USS Nimitz decommissioning plans, the service duration and extension. So it was commissioned in May of 1975. The Nimitz-class carriers were designed for a 50-year service life, placing the Nimitz's initial retirement around 2025. However, construction delays for Ford-class replacements led to a deactivation postponement, pushing retirement to May 2026. A contract awarded in September of 2024 engages Huntington Ingalls to develop a deactivation plan, which is nuclear defueling and systems removal. Following active duty, her nuclear reactors will be defueled and hazardous materials removed at Newport News. Then the hull will transition to the Puget Sound shipyard for final dismantling under the Navy's ship submarine recycling program. In March of this year, the Nimitz embarked on what is expected to be her final deployment. Yet, she was deployed again. She is scheduled to ship from Puget Sound to Norfolk, Virginia by April 12th, 2026, ahead of formal decommissioning. Now, this was before it was sent to the Middle East. So the timeline summary, you had by November 2024, a deactivation plan was due. And then 2025 was supposed to be the last deployment. And then April, arrival at Norfolk. And then in May, official decommissionings were supposed to begin. And then in 2027, the reactor defueling, deactivation, and operations were supposed to wrap up. However, now we've got the Nimitz in the Middle East. And I'm thinking of just coming to mind here, like there could be various other reasons, but kind of seems like, I don't know. I'm not going to say it. Legacy retirement. After 51 years, the USS Nimitz will conclude her storied service, making her way for the next generation carriers like the USS John F. Kennedy. Very, very, very interesting. Laid Back says, yeah, we're going to send our boat we want decommissioned into an active hostile region just because. Mick says, we're going to need a bigger boat. Laid Back says, FLIR footage of the UAP came from the Nimitz. That's interesting. Aaron thinks that that's controlled information, the FLIR footage. How's everybody doing? Michael wants a golden dome for himself. And Mick's wondering how much for a bucket of neutrinos. Oh, man. Like, you know, when you play chess, Bruce Wayne brings up a very interesting point. Interesting point. Sorry about that. Trying to say too many things at once here. Like, have you ever played chess and you'll sacrifice a pawn to save the queen, or you'll sacrifice a bishop or a rook to save the queen, and obviously to save the king, because once you're in checkmate, you lose. So the point of the game is to get the opponent in checkmate. And sometimes people sacrifice pawns when they play chess. Sometimes life kind of seems like, I don't know. It's too bad. It's too bad. So, you know, what's really interesting is, I mean, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. Let's send a boat. Let's send this massive aircraft carrier that's going to be decommissioned next year anyway. Let's send it into a hostile region and see what happens. Because if something happens to it, oh, gee, now we've got more reason, but it was going to be decommissioned anyway. The ideas that are going through my mind right now are quite remarkable. I'll tell you what, though, how many people are going to be on that ship? How many people are going to be protecting that ship? Because that's what concerns me, is people's lives. You know, it's one thing when technology or an old aircraft carrier gets decommissioned, but you're not in the same league there. We're talking about technology. We're talking about stuff. We're not talking about people's lives. Totally different ballgame. Flyboy says he'll buy it for $100. Graham says they have never used a vessel to draw us into conflict before, Rex. LOL. Of course not. They love us. They don't want that. They want everybody to be at peace and everything to be peaceful and everybody to be happy and, pay their bills, pay their taxes, deal with their issues like everybody else. It's all for you to watch out for you. Now, this is in other news, apnews.com. Threats to lawmakers are on the rise. Security officials tell senators. There was a recent meeting after what happened a few days ago. So June 14th, former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark were shot and killed at their home in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Earlier that morning, State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were seriously wounded in Champlin, Minnesota. The suspect, Vance Luther Bolter, 57, allegedly impersonated a police officer and targeted Democratic lawmakers motivated by anti-abortion and political grievances. Yeah, are you sure? Like, what else is the story? I think there's so much that they're not telling us about when it comes to this. Because first of all, Melissa Hortman was one of the only Democrats to vote against a healthcare bill that would provide healthcare for illegal immigrants. She voted against it. She looked very nervous when she talked about it the day before she was taken out. She didn't look happy about it. She looked very concerned. Interesting how that's not brought up very much. You have to kind of do some digging for that. Very bizarre, very odd. And you know what else is very odd? Vance Luther Bolter's profile. This guy and his wife have a security firm. They have a security firm. And the bio, hold on, let me pull this up for you. This is very odd. I'll just pull it up right here. Hindu. No, that's not it. Security firm he started with his wife. Oh, that's disappeared quickly. I was all over yesterday. Now it's where to go. Oh my gosh. Security firm he started with his wife. What was the name of it? Hell, I got the I'll pull it up. Well, go back and watch the podcast that I did yesterday because I've got the exact link to the article that mentions this security firm that this guy and his wife started. His wife, I think, is the CEO. And then it, pointed out his dedication to security and how he had been to multiple nations and provided security for a multitude of organizations and industries. Well, now I have to go back and find that article because it's not pulling up when you do a search. But don't worry, because Trump will save you. Trump is holding a meeting on Iran in the Situation Room. So President Trump is set to hold an urgent meeting today in the White House Situation Room with his national security team to address the escalating Israel-Iran conflict. This follows his early departure from the G7 summit in Canada, underscoring the high priority he places on the crisis. And as of the Axios reports publication, the meeting had not yet occurred. So he stated aboard Air Force One that he's seeking not a ceasefire, but a real end to the conflict and aims for Iran's nuclear program to be decisively halted. Trump dismissed U.S. intelligence head Tulsi Gabbard's assessment that Iran is not currently developing a nuclear weapon, claiming Tehran is very close to obtaining one. Israel launched airstrikes targeting Iranian nuclear and military sites. Iran fired missiles and drones in retaliation. The U.S. has reinforced defensive capabilities in the region, deploying a second carrier strike group to the Arabian Sea and additional destroyers to the Mediterranean, but is not directly participating, they say. Trump has urged Tehran civilians to evacuate and pressed for renewed nuclear negotiations. So Trump appears to be pushing for a decisive end to hostilities and leveraging diplomatic and military posture to pressure Iran into a nuclear deal. Intelligence tensions, his public rejection of U.S. intelligence aligns his rhetoric more closely with the Israeli Prime Minister's view of an imminent nuclear threat. America is supporting Israel defensively with missile interceptions, military assets, yet avoids direct combat participation. Moves like urging evacuation in Tehran and exploring envoy levels talks show Trump pursuing both military deterrence and diplomatic engagement. So there you go. Trump left the G7 meeting early so that he could talk with his advisors in a situation room on Iran. There you have it. Now, did you know this? Donald Trump is the first president in 116 years to not be invited to the NAACP convention. So what does that actually mean? Well, according to this, for the first time in its 116-year history, the NAACP has not invited a sitting U.S. president, President Donald Trump, to its national convention, scheduled for July in Charlotte, North Carolina. The NAACP president and CEO, Derek Johnson, stated the decision stemmed from his mission to eliminate civil rights, belief that Trump has undermined democracy, pushed unconstitutional executive orders, dismantled federal civil rights protections, and even used the military against civilians. He emphasized the move is nonpartisan, based solely on concerns over Trump's impact on civil rights. And since inviting presidents starting in 1946, the NAACP has included both Republican and Democratic leaders like Eisenhower, Reagan, George W. Bush, Clinton, and Obama. This marks a decisive departure from that tradition. The NAACP is currently pursuing multiple lawsuits against the Trump administration, including challenges to revoked DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion efforts, voting rights provisions. The White House response, the administration accused the NAACP of promoting division while defending Trump's focus on national unity, economic growth, and border security. So, there you go. What do you think about that? I'm sure that the reactions are going to be mixed because that's what's happened over the past 8 years as the nation has become so divided that it's tough to agree on anything if you put 4 or more people together. It's not what it used to be, that's for sure. In more unsettling news, CBS News, West Virginia flash floods kill at least 7 after inches of rain fell in 30 minutes. Let's take a look at this. June 14th and 15th, intense rainfall. In just a matter of 30-40 minutes, 2.5 to 4 inches struck northern West Virginia, particularly Ohio County and Marion County. The death toll rises from 4 to 6 and later 7. Terrible. As many as 4 people remained missing during early rescue operations. A state of emergency was declared in Ohio and Marion counties by Governor Patrick Morrisey. Infrastructure was severely affected. At least 30 roads A multitude of bridges, pipelines, and buildings were damaged or destroyed. First responders conducted swift water rescues using drones, canine teams, and dive crews, and about 19 confirmed rescues. Homes and vehicles were reportedly swept downstream. Mud and debris blanketed streets and basements. Survivors likened it to a tsunami. Stories included people clinging to trees or trapped in rapidly rising water. Experts connected the intensity of rainfall to climate change, noting such extreme rain rates, 3 to 4 inches in under an hour, are increasingly common and overwhelmingly outdated drainage systems. The National Weather Service continued issuing flash flood warnings into the early week. Wow. There's also major flooding in San Antonio. Close to where I used to live, major flooding took place just a few days ago in San Antonio. The weather is definitely extreme, and it's definitely getting more intense. So there you go. Next article. Overnight Russian attack on Ukraine kills 15 and injures 156. Scale of the assault. Russian forces launched over 440 drones and 32 missiles, plus ballistic and cruise missiles, depending on the source, in a prolonged bombardment that lasted nearly 9 hours overnight. At least 15 people have been killed and between 114 and 156 wounded across Kyiv and other regions, making this the deadliest attack on the capital in 2025, as well as an American, a 62-year-old American. A 9-story apartment building in Kyiv suffered a direct missile hit, collapsing several stories and destroying around 30 apartments. Additional residential buildings, schools, and critical infrastructure were struck across multiple districts. Ukraine's air defenses intercepted a majority of the aerial threats, around 203 drones, 175 drones, plus missiles intercepted, though many still penetrated defenses. Rescue operations spanned the night and into the daylight. Emergency services included firefighters and medics working to evacuate the injured and search for survivors. Ukraine President Zelensky condemned the attacks as one of the most terrifying, emphasizing its scale and civilian focus. The barrage coincided with his attendance at the G7 summit, where he continued advocating for stronger Western support. This was the worst strike on Kyiv this year. The attack's magnitude and civilian toll marked a significant escalation. The civilian impact was disproportionate. Residential buildings and everyday infrastructure bore the brunt. While many drones and missiles were intercepted, formidable numbers still struck home. And international resonance, Zelensky leveraged the timing to highlight Ukraine's needs at the G7. Terrible. And then also very, 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 very unsettling news in the Middle East. So Gaza, the Gaza Strip, those that want to feed their families, and attempts to get food. Well, let's just say go read the article on that. There's an article you can read about it, and the article is on Reuters. Very, very unfortunate. You know, nobody wins in war except for the bankers. So I don't know what we need to do as a people to help offset this madness. Like, is there anything that we can do as just human beings? Like, we don't have defense contracts. We don't deal with the military. We don't deal with the politicians. What do we do as civilians to help the world? How do we make the world a better place when this kind of stuff's going on? Well, the first thing that I can think of is be the change you want to see in the world. And you better hope that change is something beautiful and something that's going to help the world, because we're called humankind for a reason. Humankind. It's not human assholes. It's humankind. Humankind. We're here to be kind. And look at what we're doing to the earth. Like, whether or not you believe the earth is a real living being, or if you just think it's a rock that provides us with everything that we need because we're so special, like, I think it's a symbiotic relationship. I think we're here to protect the earth and to protect civilization, not destroy the earth and destroy civilization. That's my opinion. So what do we do? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to be aware. We need to be aware of the situation. And we need to not get sucked in to that situation. We need to have an open mind, yet not so open that our brain falls out on the sidewalk so people can step all over it. But if our brain isn't open, if our mind isn't open, it's not going to work. Like a parachute. If the parachute doesn't open, it doesn't work. It has to be open to work. So how do we keep calm? How do we be the change? And how do we help others when the news makes it look like it's overwhelming? We've got major protests on the streets that are turning into riots. We've got a divided nation, a divided world, and it doesn't seem like it's necessarily becoming more unified. It seems to me like people are becoming more divided over everyday little things. Like, so what if we don't agree on certain things? That's okay. We don't have to agree on everything. If we agreed on everything, life would be pretty boring. But how do we look through the eyes of these people that are being bombed right now? How do we look through the eyes of both sides? Because clearly the media is pushing this mindset of war big time. Well, who funds the media? Who controls the majority of the media? Did you know there's like 6 corporations that control approximately 90% of the media? And I just read an article today, or I read part of the article. The headline said that social media is now outpacing mainstream media. Well, the problem with social media is the majority of these organizations running the social media that's getting the majority of the views is, how do I put it? Green lighted. Like if you see a video that gets 3,000 views and you're like, oh, that video only has 3,000 views. And then you see another video that has like 300,000 views. You're like, wow, that video has 300,000 views. Well, most likely the video with 3,000 views has much better information, depending on who's doing the video, than that video with 300,000 views. It's just, it doesn't fit the parameters of like these algorithms that promote. It's the way that the algorithms are now. It's wild, folks. It is absolutely wild. Whoever's controlling the algorithm is controlling the narrative. Just keep that in mind. You control the algorithms, you control the narratives. Who's controlling the algorithms? Something to think about. Anyway, thank you everybody for listening. And I hope you're having a beautiful day. I hope you're prepared, not scared. And if there's anything that you want to share with me before we finish this up, I'd be happy to at least attempt to answer it for you. I'm looking through the comments right now. Do the best you can with what you have been given. Bless you, or I think you're saying bless Yahweh and he will bless you. You just didn't spell it out all the way. But yeah, do the best you can with what you've been given. I like that. I like that a lot. And thank you. Thank you very much for the kind words. Thank you for being here with me. Think peace. Yeah. Like, what do you do to think peace? You know what? Maybe we should do like a group meditation or something. I don't know. It sounds kind of cheesy. Like, dude, let's do a group meditation. Let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Kumbaya, my friend. Kumbaya. That'd be pretty cool. Wouldn't it be cool if like these political leaders and these military dictators and these people in very high levels of power that are the ones that decide, you know, what happens? Wouldn't it be cool if they could just get together and go to like a dispensary and just hash it out? Wouldn't that be cool? Like, dude, let's go to a dispensary. Let's go out into the mountains. Let's take a hike together. Let's look at all this beauty together, how beautiful the world is, and how most of this stuff that we're fighting over is absolute nonsense. It's total BS. Now, there's some, you know, when people are fighting over bloodlines because of what happened to their family, I'm not talking about that. But when do you get, is there a time that you get to a point where you say, look, we need to truce We need to have peace, because if we don't, we're just going to keep doing this, and our families are going to keep doing this, and our families are going to keep doing this. Like, where do you draw the line? I don't know. It's a very deep conversation, and people have very strong opinions. But I will say this, beliefs can be very dangerous, because you believe that you're better than somebody else, or that your culture is better than somebody else, or your religion's better than somebody else's religion. That can be very, very dangerous. So I don't know. I think it'd be really cool if, like, instead of dropping bombs, let's go on a bike ride. Let's go hiking. Let's go hang out. Let's go talk about it. Let me hear about you, and you can hear about me. What's it like living where you live, and being raised the way that you were raised? What was it like? Like, wouldn't it be cool if enemies could unite, and people on both sides of that spectrum could get together and just say, let's talk about it. Why are you so angry at me? This is why I'm so angry at you. And then maybe they could say, oh, I understand now. I understand your perspective. I understand your point of view. Now I'd like you to understand my point of view and my perspective. If we could see through the eyes of others, it would make life a lot easier. If we could understand the mind of others, it would make life a lot less difficult. You just have to listen. You have to kind of take yourself out of your own mind sometimes and put yourself in somebody else's position. I do that as much as I can. Now, there's people out there that I'm like, okay, nope, not doing it. But that's one thing that I feel like I've been blessed with, that I've been pretty good at doing, is putting my mind in somebody else's mind and seeing what it's like through their eyes, hearing what it's like through their ears, like reading their mind, listening to their thoughts and emotions, and understanding their emotions and thoughts. I think that being empathetic towards others is one of the keys here. But how do we get that on a global scale? How do you convince millions of people that have been at war for their whole lives? How do you convince those people that there's something else out there? I don't know. So I want to read your thoughts and your opinions, and thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Hit that bell for all notifications. Jump on over to Patreon after this. I just got done with an awesome interview with my friend Chris Sadler, former Marine, or always a Marine, but he's Marine combat veteran, and we talked about some of the secrets of the Iraq war, and that's over on our Patreon page. We talked about the possibility of there being, this is all live action role play here because we don't know, but we talked about the possibility of there being like ancient artifacts out there that are actually of high technology. So, how the official reason we went to Iraq was weapons of mass destruction, and we allegedly never found any. Some people said we did, some people said we didn't. But what if they're ancient weapons of mass destruction? What if there's actually Stargate technologies out there? What if they did find giants and the tomb of Gilgamesh? We talk about all that stuff on our Patreon. So jump on over if you want to listen to that, and have a beautiful day, everybody. Thank you for listening to my rant, and hopefully you got something out of it, something significant, and I hope your day goes very well. Be the change you want to see. Thank you. Nanu, nanu.